What's the difference between financial advice and financial planning? Well, understanding the difference between financial advice and financial planning can make all the difference for a free, prosperous financial future. And this is how to know the difference between the two. All right, so are you kind of confused? Like, what's the difference between financial advice and financial planning? Financial advisor versus financial planner? How do we know the difference? Which one's better? Which one can actually give you hope for a brighter future? Which one doesn't? I'm gonna go into that distinction in this video here, and even how there might be a third alternative that could be even better if you hang until the end of this video. So be sure to do that right now. All right, so what is financial planning and what is financial advising, right? What's the difference between financial advice and financial planning? Here's something you can remember, is that anyone, just about anyone, can give financial advice, but not anyone can give financial planning. Or to put it in reverse, financial planners are all financial advisors, but not all financial advisors are financial planners. All right, confused enough? That sounds like we're just talking through circles. And that's true, because in the traditional world, it's always interchangeably mixed, right? Like, people even call me a financial advisor, even though I call myself more of an anti-financial advisor, right? Obviously, like, this is what I think financial advisors are. They're people that sell you crap. They get paid to sell you crap, not give you good advice. Well, that's kind of what I see financial advising as being. But financial planning and advising, there is a distinction here. So, for example, if you talk about someone like a Dave Ramsey, he's a personality, a TV personality, a money expert, but he could be considered as a financial advisor. Because if you deal with anything with money management, that's financial advice. Money management could also be budgeting, paying off debt. It could be things with just how to save in general. It could also be talking about retirement planning and whatnot, although we tend to move more into financial planning when we start talking about planning for your future. So money management and those kind of things can be financial advising. And by the way, you can have a variety of different licenses and whatnot to be a financial advisor. For example, I have different insurance licenses. I used to have a securities license. I used to have some of those that could get me bordering on financial planning, but I dropped those. So now I just have an insurance license, but that still can put me in the category of being a financial advisor. There are a lot of people that are in that place that might or might not have licenses. If they're basically giving you financial advice, they're financial advisors, even if it's with a little f and a little a, not the capital or whatever you might want to say. Now, there's also financial planners. Financial planners often have like what's called a CFP, or Certified Financial Planner certification. Now, they may or may not have that. They might have different securities licenses that allow them to do different things. There's a variety of licenses people can get. Financial planners tend to also have more education and training. That doesn't mean they're smarter. I've learned this firsthand, but it does mean that they've probably gone through and passed more tests, right? There's more tests, more licensing, more things that you have to pass and hoops to jump through to become a financial planner. Financial planners are focused on the future. They're talking about the retirement planning and future planning that way. It could even border on estate planning as well. And so there's a great service that can be dealt in both of these areas. Financial advising, financial planning, both can give you some good advice. But just remember that they give you their own opinions. Everyone has their own opinions, regardless of their licensing, regardless of whether they're called a financial advisor or financial planner. The truth is, they all have their biases. They all have their own stuff. So how do you know which one's best? How do you know which one to follow? Well, one thing I like to look at when I'm looking at financial advisors or planners, right? And even just financial advice in general, is I like to know, has someone been there and done that? And are they still creating those results today? I'm not about someone who's talking about theory. I'm not about someone who just shows me a bunch of charts, right? Saying, well, hey, if you invest your money for the next 40 years, assuming 12% rate of return in the market, you're gonna have this much money in your mutual fund. Well, the truth is, like, any idiot, anybody, I mean, all of us, any of us could run a calculation just like that, and it doesn't mean anything. How do you actually deliver on the results? What advice actually works and what's actually useful? And so I like to look at the history of the advice. Understand, I used to be a financial advisor, right? I mean, the traditional mainstream financial advisor. I know I could be considered one today based on these definitions, but I used to be the traditional mainstream financial advisor with a securities license selling you mutual funds, stocks, bonds, things like that. And that was kind of my profession for 4 years. But understand that the whole reason I became a financial advisor in the first place was for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to give my dad hope of a better future, because my dad would always tell me growing up that he was literally going to die working. He thought that he would never be able to retire, that he would just keep saving and saving and saving. He'd already paid off all his debt. He was debt free. He was like the guy that Dave Ramsey loves, right? But he would do that over and over and over again. And yet he still thought he would die working. Well, when I got interviewed for being a financial advisor, this is when I decided to leave college and try to find some entrepreneurial path to take. This was one that intrigued me, because I thought, one, if I can give him his life back, that's important. And then two, what if I can find real financial advice and the results for myself. I want to be financially free too. So I was doing it for my own purposes, not just helping clients, but more importantly, worst case scenario, I knew I walked away from that profession, I should be smarter with money and I can help my dad. Well, as I got into it for 4 years, I drank the Kool-Aid. I was all in it. I loved it. Everything was amazing. I tell people, set it and forget it. Put it away for a rainy day. You're in it for the long haul. Don't worry about the ups and downs of markets. You're in it for the long haul. Just keep saving. Dollar cost averaging. High risk creates high returns. All these myths that are not true if you watch this channel more. By the way, like and subscribe to our videos here on Money Ripples. But I was telling all these kind of lies, right? Like these things that were half-truths, like dollar cost averaging is total BS. It's completely idiotic. If a good financial advisor was giving you good financial advice about dollar cost averaging, they'd say, wait for a market crash, save up all your money to pay money in then, and then let it ride. And versus, hey, the market's going up, it's getting more expensive. Oh yeah, but go ahead and buy high so then you can, freak out and sell low later on when you freak out about the market crashing or whatever. I mean, all that kind of stuff, right? I would teach all these certain things. I would teach that the market would do X percent of returns and things like that. But at the end of the day, guys, I was always looking for the evidence. What really works? Are people becoming financially free? And this became most apparent. I mean, I was already starting to question it a little bit, but it became really apparent when I reached out to my friend. And this is after I sat down with my dad and realized that my dad, although he did everything right, it still wasn't enough for him to be able to retire comfortably either. Just a few weeks later, I'm talking with my friend and he said, well, Chris, how many of your clients are truly financially free where they don't worry about money? And I spent probably it felt like an eternity, but it's probably a good few seconds or so. That's how my brain works. And I started thinking, I'm like, well, none. I wouldn't say any of them are really truly financially free where they don't worry about money. Even the retired doctors with good amounts of money still worry that they're not gonna have enough money for retirement, that they're gonna run out of money too soon. Okay, Chris, well, that's not good. Well, how about this? How many of you guys as financial advisors are financially free, not off the commissions you're earning, but actually doing these mutual fund investments? And as I was really honest with myself and I really started to think again about who do I know in this game, and I've met hundreds of advisors by this point, and even the ones that were the wealthiest, I would still look at them and say, well, no, not because of their investments. They make millions because they sell a lot of financial products or they run a financial firm or something like that. And even the ones that make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, still they're selling products, or they run a financial firm, they get overrides from their other agents and registered representatives and people like that. And I realized, I said, well, maybe none, because there's guys working here since the late 1970s. And this is in 2005, almost 2006 when I was having this conversation. So I'm like, there's guys been in this industry for like 30 years, still can't retire. He said, well, there's your problem. And that really got me to open my eyes to say, wait a minute, is this financial advice and even the financial planning actually working? Is it really getting the results? It hasn't worked for my clients so far, and even the clients I inherited from other financial advisors that had decades of advice prior to me, they still weren't able to get out of the rat race or be able to be financially free either. And neither could the financial advisors. If they didn't have the income coming in, they were broke. Even the guy I thought that might be financially free, I said, I think this guy could be because he talked a big game. He actually got fired a couple years later from that firm, was scrambling to find money because he was broke. It was all a lie. It was, they say in Texas, all hat, no cattle, right? That's what it was like. And so that's where I said, well, where's the real evidence? Where does it actually work? And so when you're looking for advice, look for those that have been there, done that, and they're still creating that today. This is why I question people. Like there's a guy that's big on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. He claims that he's bought $1 billion of real estate, over $1 billion of real estate himself. It's BS, guys. His clients bought billions of real estate properties from him. That's like a real estate agent saying, "Oh, I've invested $1 billion in real estate." No, you transacted. You sold $1 billion of real estate to your clients. They're the ones that bought it, not you. There's so many lies out there, and I know it's so hard. Even if you're watching this YouTube channel, if this is the first time you watch this, you probably don't know if I'm true or not. I'll just tell you guys, I went broke a couple times, right? I was, of course, broke early on, especially when I was starting to be a financial advisor, ironically. Then I actually got out of the rat race. I actually got financially independent when I was 28 years old after I quit being a financial advisor, started looking at real estate investing and those sort of things. But then the recession hit. I was starting to gamble a little bit more because the things that got me to be financially free, I started to get lazy on. I wasn't just focusing on the passive income. I was trying to hit big home runs and make big wins in real estate. And as a result, I got burned. Between that and starting a new business that was also suffering during the recession too, we're putting more money in to keep it afloat. Between all of that, I went from millionaire to upside down millionaire, meaning I was like $1 million in debt. So I dug out of that debt hole. I didn't file for bankruptcy. I had to pay my debts back, even if I had to negotiate them. and then eventually was able to have money again, started investing, but this time invested more passively versus actively, started to buy into things like turnkey real estate properties. I started to buy into things like lending my money out. I started to invest in things like, into apartment buildings or into, oil and gas or into raw land and things like that, like various types of alternative investments that actually got me to be financially free the second time by the time I was 39 years old. And I'm here to tell you that really, if you're looking for financial freedom, some of the fastest way to create wealth, if you want to become wealthy, is invest in business, even your own business primarily, and or two, investing in real estate backed investments. It doesn't have to be buying the property in your backyard. It could be literally investing in various types of real estate that's more passive. And that's not just what's worked for me, but even better yet, guys, it's worked for hundreds of our clients as well. They've been creating passive income. Some are financially independent, some are on their way, some are within a year of hitting their goals, and some are 10 years or so away from hitting their goals. But there's a variety of amounts, but the great thing is they all have in common is that they have passive income coming in because their money's working harder for them, so they don't have to work so hard for that money. That's the beauty, I'll tell you, like I have one client that he worked in Hollywood, and he only had $250,000 to invest, but instead of leaving it in the stock market, which would go up and down, he would say, let's take this, put it into real assets like real estate. He started to buy different properties. Guys, he's now built this portfolio. He has almost 10 properties that now pay him about $3,500 a month. And by the way, he can actually sell 2 of these properties. He's going to sell 2 of these in early 2025 to then get that to now it's about $4,000 to $4,500 a month. So now he's going to have over $50,000 a year of passive income from that $250,000, which he was not even close to getting if he had kept that in the market. He might have had about $500,000, but he's got now almost $250,000 with that money, and he's got the passive income to show for it. That's the difference. And that's where, if you're looking for advice that, again, is actually working, that works in people's lives. Not something who's just trying to pitch and sell you crap, but something that actually changes people's lives, something that actually that moves the needle for you. So if you want that, anybody can give you financial advice. Even fewer people can give you financial planning, but the very rare few are those out there that can actually give you financial wisdom that creates wealth. That is your key to success. You just got to find those people and then listen to how they think and then what did they do to get there and then replicate that. Now, obviously, I'm not a financial advisor, like I said, even though I could be classified as one. I'm more the anti-financial advisor. I don't believe in taking the traditional path. If you're looking for an alternative solution, something that's been working and it's been proven to work better, go to moneyripples.com, subscribe to our emails today, because there you'll start to discover there's a whole nother world that your financial advisor either doesn't want you to know or doesn't know themselves. Go check that out at moneyripples.com right now.